Hey you, hope you're well. My name is Nikki DeForest and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, where we explore all things spiritual. First, let me get this out. It's been a long time since I've made a video and I really have been doing deep inner work. I needed to put a pause on some of my doing style of activities so that I could focus on healing and closing out some major karmic cycles and also preparing for the new cycles. So I honored myself, I committed to my path, I committed to myself, and I am grateful that you're back here watching my videos after so long. So thank you. I'm truly grateful. In this video, I'm so excited to present it. It had to be something really good to bring me back here to do another video, and it is 11 tips for spiritual awakening. And I first did this as a blog post on my website. So first I'll leave a link to that blog post in case you want to read it or in case you want to experience it in a different way. On my spiritual awakening, I have not only experienced like a spiritual awakening, but I have also experienced a Kundalini awakening, a sexual awakening, a heart awakening times over. And because of this started during COVID pandemic, I was very isolated for a long time. I also had cancer during the pandemic, again, very isolated during this time of spiritual awakening. And what that did was allow me to create my own strategies, my own way of navigating a spiritual awakening or a spiritual path. And that's what I'm sharing here today. My intention is just that I'm sharing the wisdom that I have learned while on my spiritual awakening journey, on my spiritual path. These are the things, the strategies, this is the wisdom, this is how I navigated my path. And so I'm just sharing this in case it helps someone. And I am going from my notes again because it was a blog post first. So I've got lots of notes. So let's get to it. Let's get to the meat of this video, my 11 tips for spiritual awakening. Tip number 1 is quieting your inner critic. This truly was step 1 for me. I had a very loud, negative, intrusive inner critic that was constantly telling me, you can't do that, you're not qualified, you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes. That was the thought loop, or that was what was coming from my inner critic. I had to get rid of it first. And in hindsight, I realize now that I had to get rid of it so that I could hear. I could hear my inner wisdom. I could hear my heart. I could hear my soul. I could hear my intuition. I could hear all of my inner conversations, my inner knowing, my intuition, all of it. I could hear better once I got rid of that inner critic. So if you're still tackling or dealing with an inner critic, quickly, how I got rid of mine was I called it out. I knew it was lying to me. I knew it was negative, and I just started shutting it down. You're lying. That's not true. I am better than this. I can do better. You don't know me. You're trying to hold me back. You're trying to protect me. I'm grateful you're trying to protect me, but you got to go. So, step 1, quiet the inner critic, and it allows you to hear all of the other internal wisdom that we have within us. Step 2, bring awareness to perceived negative thought patterns. And I say perceived only because we all perceive things differently. And some people say, oh, there's actually no negative, but we know negativity in our thoughts and in our minds when we bring awareness to it. So by bringing awareness to some of those negative thought patterns, some of those negative thought loops, can't do that. Some of it's from the inner critic, but other of it is our conditioning and how we were taught to believe about ourselves. So if you have a negative thought pattern that says, like mine did, you can't do this, you're not qualified, just Bring awareness to those negative thought loops, because that is where you will find work to do. That is where your inner work lies, on those things that we keep telling us, and or that those negative thought loops that maybe didn't even come from us. They came from other people. They come from our conditioning. Maybe they came from an old work or old boss or whoever. Negative thought loops are your sign as to where you can do the work. The work begins with cutting out that inner noise, all that looping, that rumination, that focus on the negative thoughts. Get rid of it. It's blocking you. That's where the work is to do. So if you have a negative thought pattern about work, I hate work, I hate work, I hate my job, I don't like my career path, I don't like where it's going, that's an area that needs work. Number 3, okay, I can't do that with my hands, but number 3, bring awareness to resistance energy. And sometimes our own resistance can be challenging to see. But when we bring awareness into our inner thoughts, our inner world, then we can see where we have resistance to. And I remember very early on in my spiritual awakening, one of the first things that Spirit wanted to work on was relationships. And I was not ready to go there. And I said, can we do this later? I had so much resistance built up around working on the relationships in my life that I said, okay, I can't do this right now. I had resistance there, a little too much resistance. And that was an area that showed me, oh yeah, we're going to work on that first, or Spirit wants to work on that first. I'm not ready, but that is going to be a big part of the work that I do in my awakening. I know that. That's where the work is. Again, where our resistance is where our work can be. And it can guide you to, by recognizing the resistance, it can guide you to the themes, the aspects of our lives we're going to work on. It again is a clue on the things that we need to work on. And that's all it is. It's just a clue. This is where we need to work. Oh, I've got resistance around work. I've got resistance around dealing with this person, this situation. I've got resistance around dealing with my trauma. I'm not really ready to work on my trauma. So that's where the work is, though. And even if we resist it, resist, it will eventually become a block. It will eventually be, you will eventually have to work on it. It's just, if you commit to your path and if you follow it through, everything, every resistance, every negative thought pattern, everything will come up to be worked on. Number 4, get out of your head and into your heart. And I think I've been saying that for the first 3 tips, but number 4 is kind of summing it all up. Get out of your head and into your heart. Your desires, your dreams, the things you want to accomplish, the barriers that you're breaking through on your spiritual path, all of it is in your heart. It's in your soul. It's in your heart and soul. None of it is in our heads. That's why we need to get rid of the inner critic and bring awareness to our negative thoughts and our resistance. That's all in our head. And really, when we kind of clear out all the trauma and the shadow and do all the work, once we get through all that, then we can live in our hearts and live in our souls, or live from our hearts and souls. None of it's in here. We don't need all this noise. We don't need all this. What is it? It's like noise pollution that goes on our head. So again, like steps 1, 2, 3, get out of your head, bring awareness to your thoughts. Like, it's all here. Just get out of your head and work into your heart space. Ask your heart, what do you need in this moment? What do you need? And then you can bring awareness to what your heart needs, bring awareness to the signs and the signals, or maybe some even intuitive or some bodily sensations that is our heart answering us. The answers to what we want, what we desire, what we dream about are absolutely in our heart. That's why step 4 is get out of your head and into your heart. Step 5, or tip 5. This isn't steps, so if I've said steps, please forgive me. Tip number 5 is bring awareness to your needs and be gentle with yourself. So again, it's another bringing awareness, but when we are on the spiritual path, we can be doing some deep inner work. We can be really working on bringing up that shadow work and that trauma, and then the energy comes out of our body, all that stored junky energy from our past traumas and that dense energy, it does come out of our body. That's why we are sometimes physically in pain during our spiritual awakening, or really just drained of energy. That's when we need to bring awareness to our needs and provide for ourselves what we need gently, being gentle with ourselves. Whether we need to crash and sleep for days, or hide out, or maybe we need to go outside in nature to replenish our energy. Definitely me being out in nature absolutely replenishes my energy. Bonus points if I can be near moving water. Any sort of water really helps replenish my energy, but a river, moving water, whew, that can clear and cleanse my energy body and replenish my energy reserves in no time. So bring awareness to what you need: more sleep, more food, more rest, more peace, more quiet, more meditation, whatever. Bring awareness to your needs and be gentle with yourself as you provide for yourself. Provide those needs to yourself, what your body needs, what your mind needs, what your soul needs, what you know what to do. You know what you need. Just bring awareness and do it your way. Do what serves you best. Number 6, communicate with your intuition. Our intuition is the language of our soul. So think of our intuition as constantly guiding us to be more aligned with our soul path. Communication, by encouraging that communication, beginning that communication, can really help us navigate our path. It did for me. And I did it much like I connected with my heart when I said, my heart, what do you need in this moment? Soon as I felt like I was bringing forward a lot of intuitive ability, or a lot of intuition into my awareness, that's when I started asking my intuition. And it was more of a feeling, like I could feel when I was connecting with my intuition. And so I remember one night asking my intuition, what does a yes sound like or feel like to me? And so immediately I received what I call a twiggle. It's kind of a twitch and a wiggle in my body. And it's a certain twitch and a certain wiggle, and that is a yes. And I had to work through that. It's communication. So I had to ask my intuition. And I'll ask it now. My dear sweet soul flame, can you please show us what a yes looks like? So that's what a yes, that's my twiggle. That's what a yes looks like to me. So I always know, I can always ask my intuition if I have a question, a yes or no question. We're not getting into long conversations. Well, sometimes we do, but for this purpose, just ask your intuition, what does a yes look, sound, or feel like? And because it's intuitive, it's our intuition, it's often connected to our clair senses. So for me, I am clairvoyant and clairaudient, and I find that a lot of my intuitive communication from my soul, will come through that way. So I can ask any question, yes or no. And I do know what a no feels like for me, because as soon as I figured out what a yes felt like, I asked what a no felt like. And a no feels very no. There's like no movement in my body. So at all. It's a very deep stillness, just for a moment. And I'm like, okay, that's a no. And once we got yes and no down, then we can have conversations. I could ask. I could ask it anything. I've asked a million questions of my intuition. Should I do this? Should I buy this? What does this look like? Is this background good? Is this anything? You can ask your intuition anything at that point, and it'll help you guide you forward. Am I on the right path? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing in this moment? Is this activity serving a purpose? Is this aligned with me? Any yes or no question you can ask then. Super valuable tool. So if you are intuitive, you are connecting with your intuition, ask what a yes is, ask what a no is, begin the conversation. Because really, when you're inviting, and this goes for heart and soul and any of it, when you are inviting a conversation, it is implied consent. You are inviting that invitation. And we all have free will. So we really do sometimes need to consent and invite our guides in to speak with us. Just like we communicated with our heart, just like we communicated with our intuition. Tip number 7 is communicate with spirit. If you have the blessing of channels, of channeling, of actually communicating with spirit, it's a beautiful relationship. Nurture that relationship. But if you do not have that yet, just bring awareness. Again, it's all about bringing awareness. I think I've said it 50 times. If you feel yourself connected with spirit in any way, begin the conversation. It goes back to like when we're communicating with our heart, we're communicating with our language of our soul, our intuition. We can also communicate with our spirit team. And again, when we are inviting communication, when we are asking to communicate with them, invite communication, whether in the form of a question. May I ask a question? May I communicate with you? It's just like any other conversation or any other form of communication. We're going to communicate with lots of people throughout our lifetime. When you approach your boss, may I ask a question? Spirit's our boss now. May I ask a question? And then you're inviting the communication. Again, it's a form of consent. You're saying, I have free will to do whatever I want. And right now, I'm asking Spirit to communicate with me. Beautiful thing. It also carries that energy of faith and trust in Spirit, which is a beautiful thing. By asking to communicate with Spirit, not only is it consent to have the conversation, but then we are also consenting to co-creation. Obviously, we are co-creating our spiritual awakening, our spiritual path. That is very much co-creative energy. And by being intentional and communicative, we can encourage that beautiful energy to continue for us and maybe even to expand and broaden. And in that, I have communication with my spirit team, whether it be my inner spirit team, heart and soul, or the spirit guides, angels, ascended masters, everyone who I've connected with on my spiritual path. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever done in my life. And for me, that starts with communication. And that's why these tips are so important. And that's why they're all individual tips. That's how important communicating with your team is. And I feel like this is such a big part of this message. It's what Spirit is asking me to share. They want to be communicated with. And yes, we can do all the, oh, holy, religious phrases and the traditions. Those are beautiful. And if they serve you, do that. And if they don't serve you, I talk to my spirit guides kind of on the same level as me. We are co-creating. There is like very rarely is it just spirit doing their own thing or me doing my own thing. It's always co-creative. And it's the beauty and the magic of the spiritual path. Number 8, open to change. It seems kind of obvious, but maybe for me, this wasn't so obvious in the beginning because when my spiritual awakening started, I knew nothing about spirituality or spiritual awakening. I didn't understand what was going on with me. So it became very important to me to open, to receive changes, to open to what was happening for me. These changes aren't on our spiritual awakening. These changes aren't happening to us. They're not happening to us. We're not a victim of them. Yes, they are happening for us. So from that perspective of these changes are happening for us, for me, I was able to relax into the changes. And there are scary changes. I mean, we're doing shadow work here. We are digging up old traumas. Some traumas came up in my awakening that I didn't even realize were trauma. I didn't realize that something that happened to me in my childhood had such a profound impact that it would come up during my awakening in my 50s and have to be looked at, which is also why I'm going to skip back and remind to be gentle. Be gentle with ourselves as these things, these traumas, these situations, the stuff that we haven't wanted to look at, which is why we were resisting them for so long. It's going to come up. We're going to learn things about ourselves. We just got to be gentle. So open for change. Number 9, go with the flow. Go with the flow of how it's happening, how the spiritual path, how our awakening is unfolding. Just go with it. It is, again, it's always in our favor. It's often so challenging. It's hard to believe it's in our favor, but it is always in our favor. We have to bring these things up. We have to feel them to heal them, as they say. It's challenging and it's nasty sometimes and it's hard and it's tears are pouring as we release the energy. So whether we are in a deep work phase or we're kind of coming out of it, we're on a bit of a high and we kind of level out and then something else comes up to be worked on. We're going to go through these waves of highs and lows. And in the beginning, I felt like the highs were really high and the lows were really low. But as I moved on, like the highs and the lows became more even. And now, my highs and lows are kind of small and really noticeable now. Surrender to the flow. And then remember to provide your needs. Provide for yourself whatever you need, wherever you are in these cycles and waves and flows, ebbs and flows, kind of. Surrender to the flow. Open and going back to the last one, open to the change. Surrender to the flow and open to whatever's coming. By going with the flow, we are easing the resistance and we are carrying the energy of faith and trust in our path and in spirit. So surrender whatever you need to surrender, release whatever energies you need to release to be able to go with the flow. This was vitally important for me because I can be a little stubborn and I kicked up a lot of resistance. And so I often affirmed, I surrender doubts and fears, I surrender the energy of resistance, and I call forth the energy of surrender. I surrender to spirit and I choose to go with the flow, or I set the intention of flowing with the energies of my path. Whatever language you use, whatever serves you, go with the flow. Number 10, commit to your path. Sounds so odd. And even me having it come out of my mouth, it sounds so odd to me. But this was one of the first things I did when I realized I was experiencing a spiritual awakening. I committed to myself that I was going to see it through. I knew nothing about spiritual awakenings. I did not know what that meant, but I committed myself to see it through because I knew it was a way out of my misery, my own junky noise. It was my way out. So I committed to my path. I committed to doing whatever it took to be on the path. And when things got really challenging for me, I would remind myself, I am committed to seeing this through. I am committed to seeing my path through. And that got me through some of the really dark, heavy times when I wasn't sure I could do it, just recommitting to my path. And that brings us to number 11. Similar, but not the same. Commit to yourself. Commit to yourself. Committing to your path is one thing. That's saying committing to spirit, I'm committing to moving forward. Committing to ourselves kind of wraps it all up. It says, I'm going to commit to my growth. I'm committing to my spirituality. I'm committing to provide whatever I need and whatever I'm in the moment. And oftentimes for me in my path, that meant nurturing. I became a self-care queen. I became the queen of self-nurturing. I give myself the best hugs. I can hold myself as I fall asleep. I committed to myself on this path. I committed to facing the challenges that were coming. I committed to improving my life in a way that I couldn't have done by myself. By committing to my path, number 10, committing to myself, tip 11, I was saying, I love myself enough to do this. I love myself enough to see it through and employ all these tips and all this wisdom because as I committed to it for me, nobody else. I didn't care what anybody else was doing. I needed to do this for me. Another twiggle. So that's my intuition saying, yes, girl. Like, yes, committed to myself. These 11 tips are how I navigated my spiritual path. And after I published this blog, and even now as I'm speaking it through, I feel so much more wisdom coming up, and I will definitely share as I feel called to. But just remember, as we are moving on our path, as we are awakening, it's all building on each other. We are gaining wisdom as we go. The path becomes easier. Once we get through all that shadow work, well, I was going to say, there's not really like getting through all of it. I think healing is kind of a lifelong commitment. But once we get through the bulk of the shadow work, things become much easier. Our we become much more emotionally intelligent. Our our systems, our energy body smooths and calms, our reactions calm as we've healed, as we are healing through all of this. And when we become more healed, the more healed we become, the more savvy we become communicating with our teams and navigating this path, and stronger we get, then the beauty and the magic really shows up. And that's what I really find now is like I am more healed than not. And it feels so good and I feel good and I experience more beauty and magic, and that's why we commit to ourselves. That's why we commit to our path. That's why we communicate with spirit. That's why we've done all the work to clear our minds, to feel better, to feel lighter, to make the changes we need to make in our lives with ease and grace, to experience that beauty and magic that is spirit in all its forms, whether it's within ourselves or outside of ourselves or wherever we perceive spirit to be or how it to be. You can do this. This is my pep talk part. You can do this. You can see this through. I really, truly hope that you gain something from this. If you feel called to share it, please do. If you feel called to go read the blog post, please do. I I'm not sure I did it any justice. What likely happens is that as I move through it and it builds and grows upon itself, so there's likely different content in each. And I want to thank you for coming back if you've been here before, because I've been away for a long time. And this, though, I was really called to do. I think you can feel that in my energy. I was called to share this with you. And if you're still here, I am truly grateful for your energy. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And until the next time on Exploring Spirituality, I love you. Be well. Oh, 33, 33. I'm so grateful.